Students, welcome to today's video. Now, in the previous lectures, we have learned about what the internet is and how the internet was created. But today, we will ask the most important question of all. How does the internet work? Now, students, we know why the internet was created, right? It was created so that different devices can exchange data between themselves, right? So whenever we access a website, or let's say whenever we watch a video or whenever we post something on the internet, the only thing that happens is exchange of data. Now, when two devices are meant to exchange data, the first thing that happens is a communication link or a connection is established between these two devices. Now, after the connection is established, these two devices can now exchange data between themselves. So in order to understand how the internet works, we must first understand these two steps. The first step, how the connection is established, and the second step, the exchange of data. So students, let us understand these two steps using a very interesting example, which is what happens when we watch a video on Facebook. Now students, before we start to walk on this path, we first need to understand where all the data which is hosted on the internet is actually stored. Now, the data or any content is actually stored in a special type of powerful computer called a server. Now, the video that you're going to watch is actually stored in a server. Now, you may ask me what a server actually is. Now, a server is a device that helps to manage a network. A server can be used to store information. That is why a server can also be referred to as a repository of information. Now, the device that seeks services from the server, or let's say the device that wants to access the content within the server, is known as a client. So, students, in this scenario, your device is the client. And since you want to watch the video which is hosted on Facebook, we can assume the fact that the server belongs to Facebook. So, students, this is the scenario we have on our hands right now. Okay. So suppose this is the link or URL of the video that you want to watch, which of course is uploaded on Facebook. Now, the moment we click on this link, we will be directed to the Facebook page where this video is uploaded, and then we can start watching the video. So this happens in an instant. Now in this short time, two things happen. First, efforts are made to connect your device with the Facebook server. And secondly, after the connection is established, we ask for permission from Facebook server to watch the video. Now, since we have understood the fact that the video is stored in a Facebook server, we now have two more objectives left. One is to know how the connection between your device and Facebook is established, and second is to understand the transfer of data from the server to your device. Now students, to perfectly understand these two steps, we must have an idea about IP address and DNS servers. Now students, what is an IP address? So, an IP address is a unique address that is assigned to all the devices which are connected to the internet. The IP address will help you to find or locate a certain device in the network. So, in order to connect with Facebook, we must first have to locate it. And in order to locate it, we have to use the corresponding IP address of Facebook. Students, you can see the number on the screen. This is actually one of the many IP addresses assigned only for Facebook. Now, you can clearly understand that this IP address is actually a very complicated number. Furthermore, just like the Facebook server, any other device that you want to connect to, you first have to know its equivalent IP address. So you can clearly understand that remembering all these IP addresses is certainly an impossible task. So this is where the DNS comes in. Now, students, the term DNS stands for Domain Name System. This is the link or URL of the video that you initially wanted to watch. So, in this URL, the portion facebook.com can also be referred to as the domain name. So, the function of the DNS server is to use the DNS protocol and help you translate this domain name into its registered IP address and vice versa. So, whenever you type in an address or use an URL similar to this, it is the job of the DNS server to extract the domain name from the address and give your device the corresponding IP address of that domain to save you from the trouble of remembering all these different IP addresses. Therefore, we can say that the DNS server basically acts like one giant phone book. By simply looking up the domain name, you can easily get the IP address through the DNS server. So students, to sum up everything that we have learned in this tutorial, you first click on the URL of the video that you want to watch, which is uploaded on Facebook, right? The DNS server then extracts the domain name and finds out the corresponding IP address of the Facebook server. Then the DNS server tells your device the IP address of the Facebook server. Now, since you have the IP address, you can now easily communicate with the Facebook server. Students, this is how your device can easily get connected with the Facebook server so that you can watch a video which is uploaded on Facebook. Well, students, now you know how communication is established between your device and the Facebook server. But we are still missing one very crucial point. How is data actually exchanged between your device and the Facebook server? And through what kind of medium does this data travel from the Facebook server across the globe and into your device? Students, this is done with the help of a very special kind of cable known as optical fibers. Now, previously, this data was transmitted with the help of other different kinds of wires. But now, in this modern time, we opted to use optical fibers because speed of data transmission in optical fiber is much higher than the wires that were previously used. And that is because students, data in optical fibers travels in the form of light. And therefore, students, with the help of optical fibers, data can travel through huge distances in just an instant. Lastly, students, when this data reaches your home network through optical fibers in the form of light, any networking device such as a router converts these pulses of light into electric signals if you are using an Ethernet cable or into radio waves if you are using Wi-Fi. And that, students, is how data travels from the Facebook server and into your device. And finally, students, this is what happens when you watch a video which is uploaded on Facebook. So students, I hope you have understood whatever we have covered in this video. I will see you again in the next video, but until then, stay safe.